Record.
Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to Tales from the Vault. And this is probably the intro kind of stuff. And I'm going to sort of answer a few questions that people have asked me on my other channel. And I'm going to answer them on this channel. And I'll share them on my other channel so you get to come to this one. So anyway, here's the questions that I get asked. First one is, have I ever heard my imaginary friends? And yes, I have. The first time was with Tom McInhill, who used to work for us. Well, we were living in a different house back then, and I had a real friend staying with me at the same time, and my real friend was called John Hale, and he was staying with me in the loft, and I had a fruit machine downstairs, and we arranged to play the fruit machine, but of course it was dead early the following morning. So my imaginary friend at the time, his boss would come and, knock him up, basically. He'd basically come in his transit van, or whatever van he was driving, knock him up, and then they would go and do deliveries. But this one morning, I heard Tom downstairs play the fruit machine. And we went downstairs, and he's like, oh, gotta go for work, So that was the first time I literally heard my imaginary friend move. Then the second time I heard my imaginary friends was at my nan's old house in Arnside Road. I was, again, I was looking after my nan at the time, and my imaginary friend Charles had to go to his garage, and so I heard him go downstairs and go through the door and get into his car and drive off. So yeah, I have heard my imaginary friends move, but I've never heard them talk. I've never heard them actual, I never heard actual, I've sort of, in my head I know I've heard it, but I've never heard it, if you know what I mean. So that's the answer to that question. The second question is, can imaginary friends kill? And I'm going to do another video on this on my other channel, the spiritual versus imagination, but I'm bringing the series to this channel. And not necessarily. Imaginary friends can hurt people, or there has been, but it's all connected to spirituality. So I should say, can imaginary people be demons, or can they come from a demonic realm? And the answer is yes. And it's just like in the real world where you have a minority of, the majority of people, or a minority of bad. It's the same in the imaginary world. And when it's connected to the spiritual world, then I've got to say yes. But you should never blame your imaginary friends for doing anything bad, but there has been cases of imaginary people doing things bad. And I did know someone who, she said it was her friend, but then it sort of changed into something else, where then when they moved to a different house, I think she called the demon something, and it did, it did things to other people in the house. But unfortunately, through children, it does connect. When I lived in my nan's house, which is quite spooky, it was a haunted house, there was the people in the hallway, and you had to push past them. And it's very strange pushing back past something that's not there, but you had to walk. You know when there's people in a room and you've got to walk like a certain way to get past people? That's what it was like. I was always walking strange in the hall. And my mother said there was like lots of people in the house, and the people in the hall, and I was never alone. I never really had any weird experiences in the house except for one time. And I remember, I don't know where mummy was, but my real dad at the time, I remember running in and saying, Daddy, I'm going to fall. Or Jeff, I'm going to fall. God, I called him by his real name then. I'm going to fall. And he just took me and sat me down on the floor. Did he see something that I couldn't see? The room felt like it was tipping. It felt like it was tipping, and I felt like something was pushing, but I couldn't, and I felt sick. I wasn't going to be sick. It's really, I can't tell you how I felt, because I felt like I was going to, oh no, that was another time I thought I was going to be sick and nothing came. I thought, oh, I'm going to be sick. And that was really strange. And but this was like, I didn't think anything was pushing. I felt the room was tipping. But that's the only experience I've had. But going back to the people thing, when my mother described the people in the hallway, I just thought, oh, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. But yes, I was never alone in that house. And they were always, in fact, I always thought those people in the hallway were working for me. So, the soldiers on the landing, that was a time I was pretending there was soldiers. And that night, I dreamt. I didn't dream. See, this is another thing that I had. I heard the soldiers on the landing. And I knew they weren't soldiers. But yeah, that's something that's sort of, but that's where all the sleep paralysis problems started, That's where the issues with R really took hold. And I really want to tell that story properly because there's a lot I remember which, R's rules. And they do link with sleep paralysis because the sleep paralysis demon has a lot of rules, but I sort of had a friend, I sort of had a friendly bond with a demon. I know it sounds strange, but I just knew that I had to obey her, but I don't think for one second that I knew what I knew now. But I remember having an argument, a confrontation with my family, with my folks. And they sent me to bed early, and I thought, right, I could hear them downstairs. And I thought, they're awake. I was sort of a bit brave. I had my light on when I was allowed to sleep with my light on. I thought, right, now's the time to really test the water. So I did the thing, and nothing happened. Nothing at all happened. But I think my sister, she'll never admit it, I think she saw her, my big sister Jessica. She never saw him. I mean, there was one time, he started off as a black towel. And if you watch, trying to think of his name now. It's gone out of my head. But he does a lot of horror stuff. He did the thing about Freddy Krueger. Shrouded Hand, there you go. Shrouded Hand. And he was talking about the thing in his dream. And I thought, shoot, that happened to me. A thing covering my face and it happened. And not only was it a scary experience, but it was an uncomfortable experience. And the experience never changed. It was always the same. But it started off where if you yawned in a dream, I would come. Now, that was strange, but then the rules changed. If you did the call of ah. And when my parents divorced, not saying like, well, when my dad left my mum, I think I got a bit worse to the point where when I was moving school, from like year 6 into year 7, I really got strange. And when I thought I had finished, it was like, and I was trying to prove everything. I had a cassette recorder running one night. I would do it certain times of the night. I would run the tape machine. So I'd have, I'd make sure it was well into the middle of the night. And then I'd run the tape machine. But I'd have to be sort of dead stealthy about it. So put the tape in, rewind it to the beginning, press record and play, and then wait for any sort of strange sounds. And then I'd rewind it back in the morning, and then nothing. No sound of And then I got a dictaphone, and it was one with an automatic record on. I remember my real dad was saying, I've got automatic record on. So I had that set up in the bedroom. Again, no. So I tried doing it to prove. Another thing I did was I tried doing. There was another thing I tried doing, but there was no way.
10:29 p.m.
There was no way that I was gonna. There's no way he was gonna come, But it really affected me. It really troubled me because, it was like, it was getting to a point when, and then, like, I had rules, but he couldn't get to you. If someone was in the room with you, he couldn't get to you. If the light was on, he couldn't get to you. If the light was on outside your bedroom, he couldn't get to you. And I mean, Sam, the cat at the time, he was a saving grace, because I knew he was in the bedroom. He was in my sister's bedroom next door. But if I knew he was on the landing, and I would check, and there was one time when Sam was on the landing, and there was one time he was outside. Well, now he never really went in my room. He'd always go in my sister's room, or he would go. But there was this one time that he was in my room by the toy box. Now, I'll tell you, because I'm going to tell you what happened, right? So my sister went to Keswick, I think. And it was literally, it was literally after, it was a good few months, after my real dad left and everything. So it was kind of, I would say it was March, April 98. I can't really put a date on it, and I went to bed, and I had my toy shotgun hung on my back door with my dressing gown over, and my door was shut, and I knew I was safe because I had a toy rifle hung on my door, and I knew. But what happened was, I heard something come up the stairs, and I thought, maybe that might be my stepdad coming to turn my light off or turn my plugs off, because he'd sometimes do that. Maybe it's the cat. No. Now, I'd blinked at the light, and I had this thing come up the stairs. My door crashed open, and there was Ah. Now, I didn't get a full image of Ah. I wish I had done. And he picked me up. He threw me around. I mean, I was used to rough play and that as a kid, but I knew this wasn't play. And he picked me up and threw me onto my toy box. And I woke up on top of my toy box. Now, quite a while down the line, a few years after that, I think it must have been when I was a bit worried. And I think cats, they've got a, I mean, from what I've read into them, but I didn't know this back then, cats are, yes, they're independent creatures, but they do rely on us. And I was, I was scared of R at this point. Now, R was imaginary. R wasn't real. Like Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger wasn't real. But, I just remember Sam coming in my room one night and lying by the toy box. Because I went to the toilet that night and I came back. Sam was there and he wouldn't move a muscle. And that was my safety. And in the morning, he left my bedroom. So, and he lay No, it wasn't by the toy box. He lay, but it wasn't far from the toy box because the toy box was at the end of the bed. I had a CD rack, which was just a centimetre by the toy box. And he never went in my bedroom. Sam the cat never went in my bedroom, ever. And then I mean, there was the snug at the end. I've got a strange story about that, but I'll leave that for my main channel because this isn't about that. But backtracking, I tried to prove I was real. I remember when I was in year 7 and the gates creaked. I'm going to do a full-blown story about this, but the gates creaked. And I'm like, oh no, that's R. Can you check? And Mummy went and she checked. No, Stephen. So, but I had this one dream. I'll talk about this very briefly. Because I'd go into my sister's room and sometimes I'd go in her bed and then she'd kick me out and I'd go into my room. That happened a few times. But this one night, I dreamt that I went into my sister's room and into her bed. And I knew I wasn't in my sister's room. But I'd lucid dream. And I knew that I can't get in there. And I'd have lucid dreams of going in. And she would wake up. And she'd shout from her room, Stephen! What? Because, of course, I was in my own room and she was in her own room. But it was strange because she never checked. She never did the reality checks, but the reality checks were very important for me. And one reality check I did do was I would do the ah call. And I know it's something I shouldn't have done before bed, but there'd be certain times in the day where I'd call ah. I did it once in the school toilets. But yeah, it's like, I will do another video on this, but this is kind of, the story of R properly. I think, R really wrecked a bit of my life because I had to get counselling over it. And the monsters under the bed. And, we shouldn't shrug off what's real and what isn't. Because not everything we can question, not everything, it may be real, it may not be, but we can't prove it. There's nothing to say that we can't prove it. Very like Santa Claus. We can't prove that Santa Claus is real or not. We can't prove that fairies are real. We can't prove if they are or not. And these are things that you should ask yourself, is it real? And if it's shared, there are shared things. People have seen this figure. Yes, this figure may not exist, but why is there so many stories and why is the description the same? Freddy Krueger has law. The same law that that these dream demons, whatever you want to call them, have. Okay, Freddy Krueger has different rules, but the one rule that Freddy has is there's the call of Freddy Krueger. The song that they use, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. That's the call of Freddy Krueger. When the kids sing that song, Freddy Krueger comes. That's the subliminal. I mean, Wes Craven, plays around with that, and it's like people say that's not the Freddy Krueger call, but Nancy and Tina, Tina's a bit stupid. She calls Freddy, and there's quite a few people they call him. And they'll use Waze, but that song, but the reason why the Freddy Krueger films never scared me is because I experienced a lot of it. You'd say, oh, it's so close to home, Stephen, but no. It's more or less quite a bit sort of light-hearted. But what I liked about the Freddy Krueger films is how there's Freddy lore, and it's the same with aHave lore, and it's all these connections. Luckily, I was able to realize that I was able to come out of it, and there was one night. When I was young, I used to wake up in the night and check the curtain, and I would go and check the lights still on, and I would do all kinds of things. I would try and put the radio on. I would try and do all kinds of things to try and block out So yeah, they're my night terrors as a kid, and they're the questions that are answered. I will do the story of but not as a part of this series. I've just covered it because I did see a form of friend in when I sort of knew who he was, and I knew that he could disguise himself as Kylie like he did in one of my dreams, and I just sort of I didn't miss whatever it was, but it was strange because I wish that I could have had a bond with whoever it was. But we would have a few jokes about her, we did one of the tests which we did again in the day. We'd luckily it wasn't a black towel, but we had a towel on the landing, and in the daytime, I'd just say to this towel, right, it would be before bed. No, that was it, before bed. So I would say to the towel on the landing, if you fly off this banister, that was it. Yeah, if you fly off this banister and prove to me you're real. Something stupid on that line. But the towel was wrongly coloured. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord there was a wrong coloured towel hung on the banister. But I don't know. there was something quite sinister, and why was I making friends with it? Trying to make friends with something quite sinister. But, you know, my sister did see our. I think she saw her twice. When she was pregnant, I'm not going to go fully into what happened, but yeah. She said she saw her then. And then the first time she saw her was, I think it was in the attic. So, yeah, we both saw her. But I had more of an issue with her than Jessica did. So, I think it was because I was the big brother, you know, and being the male and all of that. And I mean, I don't think that was the first time my sister saw her. I think my sister did see her at the same time I did. But there's no way we could admit to it. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I've added a little bit on, but now I can actually, this is my secondary channel, but this was for my advertisement company, but now I've changed it. And I've set this channel up. It's been a bit of a headache because, excuse me, I've had to set up through my phone, and I've had to remember the code and all the rest of it. But we're fully on, and we're now live and kicking, and I can make full-blown videos, really long videos, and who knows? And another thing, if anybody has ever seen her, I know when I did the creepypasta version of it, I had quite a few people saying, "Oh, Stephen, I've seen that. I've seen, you know, a black shape figure or whatever, or a shadowy shape in the night." But I'm going to talk about dreams, because dreams and imagination, they're all mixed, and I'm doing it as my second series on this channel. But yeah, so this will be where my imaginary friends live. This will be where all the pretend and play stuff actually happens. Even though my main channel has all that, I think this channel has or will be home to a lot more of that. But there'll be lots of posts on here, and for the Tales from the Vault series, which I'm doing a playlist for, please make sure that you subscribe for Tales from the Vaults, which is going to be a book. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and goodbye.
Mic trigger, mic lock, finish recording.